Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to have a fun exercise. We'll probably do, about 1,001 times between now and Labor Day. My friends, Jake Ciely from The Athletic and Andrew Erickson from Fantasy Pros here, we're going to try our best to throw out what our first round might look like in 2026. We just had a great show with Jake and Pat Fitzmaurice. We were talking about kind of the post-mortem from 2025, what we can learn about in 2026. So if you missed that, go watch it on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel right now at Fantasy Pros and wherever you get your podcasts. But we're going to try to take some of that discussion here and put it into the first round and see if we can make that knowledge work for us. Jake, since that conversation, I actually changed my first round because this is what it is, right? It's constantly moving. It's constantly taking shape. And I think these kind of conversations here, where a couple of us who, do this day in, day out, all year round, having these conversations, talking it out is how you get the best product at the end of the day.
I would 100% agree, because also, this as well as anybody who's been around me, is our drafts in July don't look like our drafts at the end of August. And it's not just because of ADP and other people shifting. It's we learn more things. People get hurt, things adjust, and we have to adjust to the drafts and what we expected. So yeah, drafting today should look nothing like your drafts come August, but the exercise, because then you can pivot on the spot because you know these names, you know the information.
Yeah, and look, it's tough because you got guys like Malik Neighbors, right? Big-time talents coming off injuries. Do we want to put him in the first round? I got to say, Erickson, after last night catching that IHOP commercial that he was in, that was hilarious. It made me almost want to push it.
Was that the first time you saw it?
I hadn't seen it. I don't know why. I hadn't seen it. I watch a ton of Red Zone, so I never see that. And then, like, the standalone games, I tend to DVR stuff. So I'm blowing through commercials. But last night, I was watching it live on a Monday night and laughed my ass off. Hilarious. Brilliant. Take a little joke at yourself. Andrew Erickson, we were talking about Stephon Diggs returning from the ACL and he hit the ground running. Like, maybe it's not such a bad thing for him in terms of like potentially returning and being a first round pick by the time we get to August.
Yeah, I think that there's a buying opportunity when it comes to Malik Neighbors, because it just takes that one game where, he's back. And then he's valued as that top five wide receiver that we were drafting him to be last season, and it looked like he was on the way to be super productive in his second year. And that was when we didn't even know about the quarterback. But we feel, or at least I feel, that Jackson Dart, he can be a franchise quarterback. He can feel fantasy success. We saw that with Wan'Dale Robinson have another monster year, and Wan'Dale Robinson's also a free agent. So we could go back to Malik Neighbors, 170 targets. Love that.
Yeah. All right. So obviously this is very early. Coaches need to be put in place. Coordinators need to be put in place. Draft picks need to be made. So this is fun, but also kind of the best we can do right now with the data that we've been given. And that's what we're trying to do for today. Make sure you, again, subscribe to the channels. That's what we want you to do. Hang out with us all the time. And let's start here with Jake Ciely. We're going to go through the first 4 picks here in the first round for each of us. Jake, why don't you kick things off with your picks number 1 through number 4?
Yeah, I start with a running back, and I love my running backs, Joe, but the next 3 after that are not. I actually go Bijan Robinson, and then my next 3 are all wide receivers with Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jamar Chase. I don't know if you want additional information, or are we gonna go through our 4 and then come back around, or are you gonna? You host. You tell me.
You know what, Jake? I'm going to let you walk through your first 4, because I think one thing I love about you, and you and I have been friends for over a decade now, and we've done hours. Believe me, I'm part of my therapy bill is really for you, and all that just damage of working with you all these years. But I think once Jake Ciely gets rolling in a monologue, it's good time. So I want you to go and kick off your 1 through 4 in your thought process, because I know there's a reason to the grouping. And I think it's not just like, okay, this guy's my number 1. Who's your number 1? That's not as good conceptually as when Jake Ciely breaks down the reason behind the 1 through 4.
So Evan Ingram is just kidding, for everybody that goes back that far.
Nobody here is going to go back that far. All right.
Andrew has no idea what's happening right now. I want to get running backs, but like Bijan Robinson is the only one I would consider, even coming off somebody who was champion taking Christian McCaffrey in the middle of the first round, which, by the way, he'll be there around the same this year again, but there's risk associated. Bijan Robinson, the age, what he did at the end of the season. I just think when you're going to get that advantage, when you're looking for a Christian McCaffrey type, Jonathan Taylor, what he did for most of the season until they had the quarterback issues. Bijan, Gibbs fell off at the end, but like if you're looking for the one who was consistent, really without warts, quote unquote, even in the games where Tyler Algier did his thing, Bijan Robinson's the one. And honestly, I don't know that we've seen the ceiling. Like, you could argue that's what it was, but I think there's still another step up. As you mentioned, we're talking about coordinators, coaching changes, and all the sorts. We don't even know necessarily what the quarterback might be if it is Penix next year. So it remains to be seen, but I feel like his is the safest of the question marks we have at running back, and then that's why I turned to a wide receiver. I go with Puka Nacua. I have a feeling, I'm going to sneak preview for everybody out there, Erickson's ranks. I can't imagine that he's down that low, except for the fact that every single game I'm like, oh my God, is Puka Nacua hurt? Is he hurt? Is he hurt?
Yeah,
is he hurt?
Style
like
play,
every game. But I get that, but that would be my only argument against him not being the first wide receiver off the board, because I guess the other one would be if Matthew Stafford's done, but we played that game this year. As Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua are arguably the best combination we've seen this year, and I don't see why that changes next year, whether or not Devontae Adams is back. You talk about target share, his is unaffected by whether it's an elite talent or a subpar talent next to him on the field. So that's why I guess the slight edge for me over Jackson Smith and Jigba. We talked about it. Actually, Erickson and I just talked it on yesterday's show for the recap after I talked about you on that show. I'm getting a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba praise, and I missed some things, but the biggest thing that I looked at was the target share volume, Sam Darnold being able to come in and do what he did with the Vikings, with the Seahawks. But there's a question there. Is Kubiak going to be gone? Is there going to be a question void at number 2 wide receiver? Is he still going to get that 35% target share? And I love Smith and Jigba, but to call him number 2, I think isn't slighting him. But that's what you said. The diatribe here is that Chase at 3. If you want Chase 1, I'm not going to yell at you. I have these 3 wide receivers. It's Nacua, Smith and Jigba, Chase. If I was doing a tier, it'd be that 3 done at wide receiver. It's those 3. If you want to argue for any of them, the only reason Chase comes in the 3rd is because if you actually look at his career, last season, 2024, is the outlier. He's actually been more in these 16, 17 point per game seasons versus the 20. I'm not saying it can't happen again, but with or without Joe Burrow, he's been more in that range. And when Joe Burrow came back, like even if you take out the beginning of the season before Burrow got hurt, if you take just when Burrow came back, he was still only 15 or 16 fantasy points per game. So he's not even on the level of Nacua unless he gets back to 2024. So that's why he's 3rd for me. I'm not saying you can't argue he's 1st, but that's why he's 3rd of the 3.
See, I knew when Jake Ciely gets going with a good monologue that things are going to go well. See? And I love it. All right, Andrew Erickson, let's walk through your 1 through 4 here because you also agree with Jake. You are also starting with Bijan Robinson.
Yes, going with Bijan Robinson. And to add more fuel to the fire, Bijan as the 101, Tyler Algier is a free agent. So there's a chance that he might not be back, and we get closer to 90% snap share Bijan Robinson in a full-blown Christian McCaffrey of yesteryear, where he's seeing every single snap in that backfield. Now, I would expect them, even if Algier walks in free agency, they'll probably add somebody else. There's a lot of decent free agent running backs. They could draft somebody, and the coaching change does matter. But I think if Zach Robinson is still hanging around Atlanta, whether he's upgraded to head coach, whether he stays as the offensive play caller, I mean, the thing that they kept telling us over and over and over again was Bijan Robinson's the best football player on the planet, and we want to feed him as much as humanly possible. That was both Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson saying that. So again, he's in his uber prime, and that's how I feel about Jahmyr Gibbs too. So he's my number 2 player, and I guess I'm open to taking some of these running backs a little bit earlier than some of these wide receivers. And you just look at just the past season, top 4 scorers that weren't quarterbacks: running back, running back, running back, running back. A lot of running backs. And if you look over the last couple of years, so since 2022, fewer wide receivers have finished inside the top 12 than running backs for 4 straight seasons. But before that, we were seeing more of the wide receivers finish ahead of the running backs. So I'm starting to push running backs up a little bit more. Now, this will probably change a little bit based on what the second round looks like in terms of running back versus wide receiver. So if you're kind of going for that combination, this can change. But for now, that's why I have more running backs inside my top 4 than wide receivers. My number 1 wide receiver is Jamar Chase. I just don't want to overthink it. When he has Joe Burrow, he can be the highest scoring fantasy wide receiver. And we've seen it through season after season. And I guess maybe I shouldn't be more concerned about Matthew Stafford missing time or Joe Burrow missing time, because Joe Burrow is also constantly hurt. So that's always a big question mark whether he's going to play a full season. But I guess I would push back. Like, when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are playing at a high level, I don't think anyone can beat them as a combination versus Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. So I would push my chips in on Chase and Burrow. But again, the injury withstanding when it comes to Joe Burrow being healthy for a 16, 17 game season. And then my last running back here, who I believe I'm the lone wolf on here in the top 4, is James Cook, running back for the Buffalo Bills, the NFL's leading rusher. He's in his prime. I think that he is a prime-time running back, and Joe, give credit to you. Again, this wasn't on the bold prediction show as I told you so, but you should have brought it up as I told you so, because James Cook, I was fading James Cook because there's no way he can be as good as he was last year, and then he was better because he rushed for a lot more yards. Again, the touchdowns came down a little bit, but I mean, you were so happy that you drafted James Cook. We talked about it on the AFC East Takeaway show where we don't trust any of these pass catchers on Buffalo, whether they're wide receivers or tight ends. Who is the offense? It's Josh Allen and James Cook. This is what makes this offense function at such a high level. And yeah, I get that the pass catching's not been there for him, and there's not a chance that still doesn't change, but it's not like he doesn't have the skill set to do it. Coming out of Georgia, that was he was praised for, was this guy's so great at catching passes out of the backfield. So although it hasn't really been fully unlocked by Joe Brady in this offense, Josh Allen's obviously a running quarterback, so that's going to take pass attempts out of James Cook for targets. But in a scenario where this pass catching group continues to struggle, maybe they phase Ty Johnson out and they're like, no, we're playing James Cook on third downs now. I could see him being a top 3 finisher again. So James Cook for me is number 4.
Look, I love hearing the praise for James Cook, and I don't think anybody was as high on James Cook coming into this year as me, and it was for what Erickson laid out. There was just nobody else in this offense. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case in 2026, so I'm projecting in my mind that they're going to be in on A.J. Brown, they're going to be in on other wide receivers, maybe via draft or via trade. So I just think that they have to learn the lesson here. You can't keep going this direction 2 years in a row here, 3 years in a row, where Stephon Diggs leaves and you haven't replaced that productivity of receiver. You need to replace it with somebody. Keon Coleman ain't that guy. So I do imagine when that happens, maybe that Cook productivity comes down a little bit. But to your point, Andrew, maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is exactly what they think they can do and just run it back again. So Jake has Bijan, Puka, JSN, and Jamar Chase. Erickson has Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase, and James Cook. At the top of my list, and you're going to see I'm a little bit more heavy on the wide receiver room, despite the fact it was a good year for the Bell Cows. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to live in the past. I'm going to continue to be Mr. Wide Receiver. So one thing that I know, I don't think much is going to change in Seattle. Jackson Smith-Njigba is still going to be the guy, and I'm going to put him right at the top of the board. I just see them running it back exactly how it is, especially if they win this round of the playoffs. We'll see how that goes for them. But when you've had that much success, yeah, maybe you'll add a little bit more. Maybe some of the young kids you drafted to, take a little step forward. Maybe Torrey Horton comes up a little bit too and starts to play a little bit more. But I think for me, it's Jackson Smith-Njigba who is going to have a huge total because everything just goes to him. You have a quarterback who is healthy. You have a quarterback who is, finally gaining his momentum and his confidence the last 2 years with Minnesota and then with Seattle and Sam Darnold. Like Jake, I'm not going to argue if you want Jamar Chase at 1 because he's my number 2. And when healthy, as Andrew said, there's nobody better than Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase when those two are locked in, healthy, and ready to go. The problem is, in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of time where that wasn't the case, and that's been very frustrating. Bijan Robinson is my 3. If you want to argue him as 1, I'm cool with that. In half PPR, maybe I would go with him as my 1, 2, and I understand that. I just want to see who the head coach is first. I want to see how that shows up there because depending on what kind of offensive or defensive mind or what kind of coordinator they bring in, I just want to see how that unfolds first before I put Bijan at number 1. So I think the other 2 situations, we have continuity with the coaching staff. We have continuity with the offense. We know who it's going to be. Nothing's going to really change there unless Kubiak gets a job, which he very well might. But even so, I think the concept stays the same. And then my 4 is Puka Nacua, which is only because style of play, as Jake alluded to, but also I don't think Stafford comes back next year. I think this is Matthew Stafford's swan song because he couldn't get up off the table in the training room to start the year, and he had a great season. And I think Matthew Stafford realizes only so many times we're going to go through this, and even if he gets to a Super Bowl, doesn't get to a Super Bowl, wins a Super Bowl, I think Matthew Stafford here is at the end of the rope. And if he's not, it's another year older. And I love Puka, but to be the number 1, I'm just trying to shade away as many possible variables as I can get. And I think Puka just brings up between the injuries and Stafford and even Stafford's potential health a lot of problems there where I just can't put him in the top 3. So those are our picks for the top 4. Of course, you can throw your comments below in the YouTube. And of course, don't forget that we have got our sponsor, Hard Rock Bet, the only legal sportsbook in the state of Florida. They are the official sports betting partner of the Jags, the Bucks, the Heat, the Magic, and the Panthers. And NFL continues to roll on, whether it's the college football playoffs you're into, whether it is the NFL playoffs, or maybe you like a little bit of NBA. Hard Rock Bet has it all. And now they got the same game parlays you can do as well. And of course, you can even do multiple sports over multiple bets and parlays. Have some fun with that. And if you miss this show, the first time around, you're catching it later, don't worry. Every single day, there's new stuff on Hard Rock Bet that they're going to drop on you. So check out all of the fun boosts that they do there. And of course, they have in-game live betting as well. And when you bet $5 at Hard Rock Bet, you get 150 in bonus bets when you first bet hits and wins. You get your winnings and 150 in bonus bets, but only when you download the app. So download Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app today. All right, Ciely, we got through the top of the list. Let's get picks 5 through 8. Walk us through, starting with number 5 on your list, Jahmyr Gibbs.
I don't get to ask a follow-up after all that.
Oh, yeah.
Sit and wait.
By all means. Jake's not used to being this quiet so long.
I know. That was way too long.
Yeah.
You got to give me credit. Like, I kept my mouth shut.
That was very good. You are a very good boy. You're a very good boy. You get a cookie after the show.
You want a treat?
Thank you.
Who's the follow-up for, me or Erickson?
It's both, because it's the Jamar Chase conversation. Like, sure. You answered the Nacua one, because my pushback was going to be Nacua was almost 2 points per game more than JSN, and I love JSN, but you brought it up. It's the Stafford thing, that's why I said it's fine. The Jamar Chase one I wanted to come back to, because Erickson said, with a healthy Joe Burrow, and this is my pushback, is that, again, the 20-point season was the anomaly. The other 3 seasons with Joe Burrow when healthy, and I'm throwing out the 4th season where it was half Jake Browning, which Jake Browning actually played well that season. I'm throwing that one out the window. But the 3 seasons this year when Burrow came back in his other 2 seasons, he's averaged 16.2, 16.3 fantasy points per game, which is what he exactly averaged when he came back with Joe Burrow this year, or Joe Burrow came back. So that's my question to you guys, is it's 16.2 or 3 for Chase, which is amazing. But it's not even JSN, and it's hell far from Puka Nacua. So, the question would be, are you expecting him to get back to the anomaly season, or that? And that's where I'm presenting it.
I'm expecting the offensive line to get massive improvements because they cannot go out there again. I think that leads to potential more upside games. And look, I think when you have good offensive line play, you can have some of those bigger splash games. Like Puka had a 200-yard game. Like, guess what? When you have that many points in one game, it adds to your points per game average. So Jamar Chase didn't really have those opportunities. He was playing with Joe Flacco a bunch. He was playing with Jake Browning this year, who was not good. Burrow, obviously, up and down at certain times this year. But to me, it is a matter of that. What I like about Chase is the consistency and the rapport. And that is something you can just lock in. So, yeah, I mean, these guys have been playing together since they were in college. So I think there's a certain special vibe between the two of them that makes me feel good about my investment. Because it more than just being the big splash guy, I also don't want to be wrong with my top 4 picks. And I think that there's very little that, I feel like, well, that investment going wrong compared to a Puka Nacua, where the Stafford age, the Stafford retirement, the Puka Nacua style of play, who does take over for Matthew Stafford potentially if he's not there for injury, if he does come back, because he is another year older. So a lot of that what if, I think there's more what ifs with Puka than Jamar Chase, but I understand Puka over Chase completely because Puka is the offense, right? You want everything to roll through him. There's no doubt who it rolls through. It rolls through Puka. Andrew, do you agree with that sentiment? Where are you at with that?
It rolls through Puka till they get to the red zone sometimes, and then it's Devontae Adams, and he had 27 end zone targets this year.
That's a lot.
It's an absolute ludicrous number. Now we'll see what Adam. Again, he's getting older, but I would say from an argument of usage, Jamar Chase has had a much better red zone role than Puka Nacua has had. I mean, that was the reason why I was on Chase as the wide receiver 1 entering last year, was because this guy is leading the NFL in red zone targets per game. And if you look at the most common theme between number 1 finishers at the position, it's usually tied to who has the most red zone targets. So I do like Chase because I think he does have a little bit more touchdown equity. Not to say that Puka can't score touchdowns. I don't want to say that, especially
10.
Devontae is gone from the offense, but Devontae's got to be gone. Stafford's got to be back. Is he going to throw for 40-plus touchdowns next year, too? Maybe not. So Whereas Joe Burrow,
unlikely, I think.
Wouldn't blink twice if Joe Burrow throws 45 touchdowns next year if he is healthy. And that means Chase is going to catch 15, 16, maybe 20 touchdowns, which I think gives him a little bit of an edge.
Important follow-up. Good on Jake Ciely for asking the follow-up question. Let's get to Jahmyr Gibbs at pick number 5. Walk us through picks 5 through 8 and your thought process.
Yeah, I go Jahmyr. This is where the running backs come into play. There's a long list before we get to wide receiver. Hint, by the way. So all 4 of this are running backs at Jahmyr Gibbs, which, by the way, I'll come back to it. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane. So Gibbs, what I was about to say is that we know David Montgomery might not be back, which is already a plus in the column. And we already saw what that was like with David Montgomery. Essentially was getting phased out for much of this season, especially when we saw Dan Campbell take over from Morton over there. The thing I was going to say is if the rumors are true and this is where Mike McDaniel goes to be the OC, Jahmyr Gibbs 101, like leapfrogs Bijan Robinson. I will put Gibbs 101 if Mike McDaniel ends up in Detroit. That's how big of an impact. We're talking about these offensive coordinators. I think it would be huge. And I think that if Mike McDaniel somehow, with whatever happens in Atlanta, ends up going there and Zach Robinson's out the door, that just even locks in Bijan more. Like that's the impact where we're talking about these coordinators. But we saw Gibbs. The only downside to Gibbs was what happened at the end of the season. That left a sour taste in everybody's mouth who had him on their teams, because it was 2 bad games and 1 good game at the end of the season. And everybody forgot what happened for the entire year just because that was what is recent memory. Could have knocked you out of the playoffs. But Gibbs was amazing outside of that. Gibbs is one of the top 3 running backs that I would consider. The third being Christian McCaffrey. And I already know what the push bash for everybody's going to be. And there's no convincing you, Joe, Andrew, or the people that are on your side, and there's no convincing the people who are on my side. And Andrew's shaking his head, and I had this list, and I didn't bring it up yesterday, but all the pushback lists that everybody keeps throwing out, here's mine for you. How about the fact that Larry Johnson did it in back-to-back seasons? How about the fact that Ricky Williams did it in 3 straight seasons? This is the 370-plus number. How about LaDainian Tomlinson, 7 straight seasons, finished as a top 5 running back with those touches? Chris Johnson did it in 2 straight seasons. Tiki freaking Barber did it in 5 straight seasons, finishing everywhere from RB6 to RB1, somehow finishing in front of LaDainian Tomlinson 1 year because that's inexplicable. Clinton Portis did it twice in 2 separate years of 2004 to 2005, 2007 to 2008. Aaron Foster did it 3 straight years. Yes, there's an argument, and there's an argument for it. There's also an argument against it. I'm just not going to play the game of Christian McCaffrey because here's where I go with it. Let's throw all those out. All the names that Joe listed, which he's right about. All the names I listed, which I'm right about.
For that full list, by the way, you can go find my Twitter post about it or watch our video. We had a short form funny video about it on Fantasy Pros on the shorts. Or go listen to that show with Pat where I rattled through all the Hall of Famers who had 400-plus carries. It was carries, more, not even touches, just carries. And when the ones that did not the next year finished even as an RB1. So I'm not going to go through that list again, but it's a long list and it's got littered with Hall of Famers, to Jake's point. But Jake, my question back to you with all this real quick too, because as you're listing those names, how many of those guys were 30 when it happened?
Tiki Barber was all the way aged through 31. The second time around, Clinton Portis was right there. Aaron Foster was, I think, because
that's the other thing with McCaffrey. It's not just now the total and the touches. So it's that's the 30-year-old number standing us in the face too.
Which my point was, so let's take this because my joke in saying those names is what I started with. I'm not convincing you. You're not convincing me. Sure. Let's throw this out, and here's where I look at it. Let's say 20% is a pretty damn aggressive number in my opinion. You take 20% off what Christian McCaffrey just did. He's still RB5. And I could understand it. Like, again, I'm not going to convince anybody because you're right. I am concerned enough that Christian McCaffrey's not my RB1. Christian McCaffrey's not my RB2. He's not even a top 4 pick. Absolutely. So you could argue that he should still be the 1 because if he plays 17 games, if he stays healthy, he has has 100 receptions again. He's going to be the RB1 again, but we are factoring that risk. I factor in the risk enough to push him down to 6. I see the argument to push him down further, but as my point of chopping off 20% of his production, that still puts him at RB5. Still puts him at 18.5 fantasy points per game, which is a ridiculous number. So I get all the arguments. And this is where I'm going with the next one. Jonathan Taylor. It's so quickly everybody forgot that Jonathan Taylor was dominating as the RB1, even with Christian McCaffrey until Daniel Jones got hurt. The reason he's at 7 is because is Daniel Jones the quarterback next year? What do the Colts look like next year? They're in flux. I could see an argument for Jonathan Taylor being higher. And I could see an argument for Achane being higher, depending on who their offensive coordinator and their offense is, because we've seen Achane just knock on that door, actually had 18.1 fantasy points per game. It was arguably an awful Dolphins season, and he was still 18.1. So that's why they're all here. My biggest takeaway I want everybody to know of these four is just like the wide receivers, you argue for any of those four, I'm not going to be like, you're stupid. They would be in a tier. And there's another name that's in this tier.
Jeez, now what am I going to do, Andrew?
I will save there's a fifth name that's in the tier, but he's the pick number 9. There's a fifth name that you want to make an argument for any of these 5 running backs. We'll save who the fifth is. I'm okay with it. It's just this is the order I'd go in.
I think my only pushback with McCaffrey besides all the massive data from the last 25 years of guys who had 400 plus carries in the season or touches in the season and the next year not finishing as an RB1 or even finishing the season, is also the age of 30. But on top of that, it's something that you actually said, and I think you said it almost like as a as a caveat of positivity, which is even if you took away, how many games was it you said? If you took away
20%. 20% of his touches.
20% of his touches. But what if you're taking away 20% of the touches because he's missing 20% of the games? And then when do those games happen? Do they happen in the playoffs because he doesn't get you? Like, he might get you there, but he's not there at the end of the year because he has an injury and something happens. It's that worries me, that to me, as a top 5 pick, I can't get there with McCaffrey. But all the things you're saying out there, look, I was wrong about McCaffrey going into this year. He scared the heck out of me with good reason. I was very much into him at the 10th overall pick last year. That's where he started this time last year. It was like 10, 11, 12, where it's like, ooh, right at the turn, okay, I'm in on McCaffrey. But then I got to like 5 or 6, and I just could not get there. Turned out it was wrong. Turned out he was the best guy you could have. Andrew Erickson, who's the best guy you could have at the 5th overall pick? Walk us through picks 5 through 8, because I'm sure there's going to be some overlap with some of the names here that we've already discussed and some guys that Jake just discussed.
Well, before I get to my pick number 5, I want to share my Christian McCaffrey stats because I haven't been able to share them because we're all kind of just unloading here on CMC, whether pro CMC, negative CMC.
I don't want to blow your CMC ranking this early, though.
I mean, he's not in my top 8. Okay, he barely stuck into my first round. He's number 12. Spoiler. So for me, the stats that I'm looking at, so mine are just specifically to touches, not even necessarily carries, but last 13 running backs with 400 plus touches. Only one of them has been a top 5 running back the next season. So, Saquon Barkley obviously.
Also, some of those guys that Jake mentioned, like the LTs, like LT is such an anomaly. LT is the reason we have the third round.
He did it when he was 24 years old.
Right, and
like
LT,
when he was in uber prime.
Again, special offense built around him.
Years.
Well, Arian Foster, again, he was a blip on the radar for a couple years. Larry Johnson, same thing, blip on the radar, but it's a very different game than it is now. You don't see running backs used the same way, and you don't see also the size-speed combination now that you're getting in the NFL of some of the players on defense that you were getting back then. There were some big boys, there were some quick guys, but the combination of the violence of what you see now, I feel like, I'm not saying those guys didn't hit harder, they did because the rules were different, but I feel like it's just a very different game from the Tiki Barber era around, the year 2000
but I think
to what it is now in 2025.
There's an argument that you can spin any of this, and that's why I said there's no convincing anybody on this, because you could say, arguing back then, it was you take RBs in the first 2, even 3 rounds because everybody, totally and to not finish 5 and only finish 9 back there was actually, you're still top 3 this year because of how different the game is. There's the argument for that kind of workload. I mean, look at how many running backs back then were 300 plus touches. And then what if the cutoff's 360? And then you start throwing other names who did do it. What if the cutoff is 390? And I'm not saying Erickson said top 5. Well, what if you go to top 7? So the point being is my biggest takeaway is you guys are on the same side. I'm on a different side, but we're not convincing each other. I was throwing the numbers out to say, this is why I have them here. If you disagree with me, I'm okay with it. But it's funny you said that, Joe, is because I had them as 5th overall last year, and that was still too low. To the point being, it's so I associated risk as not as much as anybody, but as factored in as well.
I think the best thing about this is none of us ever talk about you're wrong or right. This is the whole point. It's the process of debate so that everybody else can get out there and make these decisions as they start to put in their brain what the value is.
Unless you don't like Evan Ingram, then you're
Unless you don't like Evan Ingram. Gotta love the inside joke there. All right, so Erickson, walk us through your 5 through 8 picks here. Tell me the reasoning.
I didn't get to share my stats. You guys just took it and ran with it.
We both thought you were done.
I thought he had a stat.
I said one thing, and then you guys immediately took back the conversation. I was like,
way too long on that.
Yeah, you gotta work harder.
Okay,
Ciely and I just suck up all the air from the room.
I'll be quick with the last couple ones. Running back.
Don't be quick at all. I thought that was your stat, the one you threw out there.
No, I'm going because we're running out of time to get to my top 4 through or picks 5 through 8. So running backs 27 or older, led the NFL in touches, happened 6 times, 0 top 5 finishes the following season. CMC, we've already done this dance before with. He led the NFL in touches a couple years ago. He came back, had the calf thing, and was a disaster for fantasy football purposes. So this specific player it's happened to. And then something that's note of recent, George Kittle tore his Achilles. Probably going to miss most of next season, I would bet, because it's usually a 9 to 12 month injury. His rushing yards this year, Christian McCaffrey, without George Kittle lineup, he went under his rushing prop in 6 of the 7 games that George Kittle didn't play in.
That's a good stat.
So that's another big thing when you come to McCaffrey has that receiving with him that is always going to be boosting up him versus other running backs. But the rushing fell off substantially. He looked much more like not the same type of explosive running back he has in years past. And that is a big concern. So even from an efficiency standpoint, I think that's something to be concerned about because there was a massive fall off in how effective he was as a rusher, as a breakaway runner, and it just wasn't the same. So
I think the visual too, right, Andrew?
That goes the other way too, though.
McCaffrey running between the tackles just didn't look like the same guy. When you get him out in space, catching the football,
I will agree with that.
But between the tackles, CMC is 2 years ago, different guy between the tackles.
No, 2 years ago, George Kittle, when he was healthy for all 16 games, Christian McCaffrey actually had a downtick in the receiving game. So it could go both ways too.
No, but I'm saying is like his rush game this year, just visually. Yeah. He didn't have the same burst. Well, nobody does at this age, typically. Even Derrick Henry's not quite the same. Like, he'll have those glimpses, but he's not always the same. It's not what he was 3-4 years ago. And I think with CMC, it's visible. And to Andrew's data point, the rushing props, he fell short quite a bit.
Well, maybe Vegas is too aggressive. Let's talk about why he hates Puka Nacua. Let's go back to that.
Let's talk about why
Andrew
hates Puka
Nacua. Now we can finally unveil picks 5 through 8 after our long conversation about Christian McCaffrey.
That'll do it for us, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the show. We really appreciate you hanging out.
To the Christian McCaffrey show. The Christian McCaffrey show.
But you know what? That's going to be the thing that I think at the end of the day, you will see the biggest ranking gap of Christian McCaffrey people. There are people who
standard deviation on him.
People who be mid-level and people who be too low, too high. Like, it's going to be all over the map. It's going to be really interesting to see who's right and wrong when it's all settled. Go ahead, Andrew. We'll all shut up.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey is not even in this tier for me, which is really ironic. So I got Jackson Smith-Njigba, Puka Nacua, Jonathan Taylor, and CeeDee Lamb rounding out picks 5 through 8. So JSN, for me, my only, again, I have him as my wide receiver too, so I guess I'm lower than him compared to you guys. Just, I think Clint Kubiak's gone. I don't think that he's going to stick around. I think he's going to become a head coach. And look, coordinator changes, quarterback changes.
There's another opening right now. Mike Tomlin's gone from the Steelers, by the way, live as we're doing this.
Whoa. Gone? Define gone. Like, I'm leaving? Or
he said he's stepping down.
Oh, they're mutually parting ways is what that is. So he's going to TV. Maybe he's taking a year off to find himself, going to backpack in Europe.
There was actually a big rumor about that he would potentially be interested in that.
Yeah. Well, it's a much easier gig. You know,
he is so much more talkable.
His beard was getting very ungainly last night.
When you get him outside of the press conference room, because the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation that he does here, and I've talked to him locally, like in that kind of setting, so much more like open and talkative, and like than he gets in those press conferences. It'd be really interesting to see him. Yeah.
Well, what did he say? If my aunt had uncle parts, she'd be my uncle. What the hell did he say the other day? He just says the funniest stuff.
I said that was when I dropped the F-bomb on the other show. You know, that's the one I said if I had wheels, I'd be an effing bike.
That's right. Oh my God. Wow. So yeah.
So Clint Kubiak could be the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that could be possibly in play. I mean, I'm never going to get to my picks 5 through 8 at this point. I mean, at this point, Joe, you should just list off your picks because there's no point in me even trying to do these. So JSN, the coach, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, potential. Does he walk off into the sunset? If the Rams win the Super Bowl, does he come back for another year, or does he just say, "Hey, I'm done. I want another Super Bowl. I'm going to win MVP." I mean, it's kind of the perfect run out. I got out before my back got worse, essentially, for Matthew Stafford, because back, as we know, as anyone that has a bad back, They don't just go away. It flares up here and there. Hasn't flared up all year, but maybe next year's a little bit different.
It's the red light therapy.
Jonathan Taylor, to Jake's point, dude, this guy finished top 4 despite basically like tanking the second half of the season. Like, he was so out and such a massive league winner at the start of the year with Daniel Jones that I want to go right back to him. I just have faith in Shane Steichen to figure this out with whatever quarterback. Again, basically, as long as it's not Anthony Richardson, it seems like we can get this offense to function with a Daniel Jones level-esque quarterback. I think they can find somebody, whether it is Jones coming off of his injury or they sign somebody. There's a bunch of free agent quarterbacks. I think they can find the right move. And then CeeDee Lamb. Again, this is kind of a placeholder. Giving credit to CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 fantasy wide receiver when Dak Prescott is healthy. But I do think that George Pickens coming back to Dallas would probably impact this for me a little bit. And there is also a thing in the back of my mind, again, not a lot of data driven here, but Dak Prescott tends to go up and down in his odd, even seasons. It's really actually kind of funny when you look at his career game logs where, this past year, odd season, Dak Prescott, top 5 fantasy quarterback. Even seasons have been really, really bad for Dak Prescott. And I think that's part of just due to the fact that he's not a mobile quarterback. You see touchdown regression from year to year. So that would be something that I would look at when it comes to CeeDee Lamb. So he's someone that is probably going to move in my rankings, but for now I have him at 8.
If you knew Pickens was coming back, would you keep Lamb at 8?
No, I'd probably move him down.
Yeah, that's a good caveat. All right, Andrew, is there anything else you want to say? Because I feel like we've been unfair to you.
Wow, love you guys. Joe, let's go to your picks.
We love you too. All right. I feel bad now. I thought Andrew gave the data point.
See what happens when I'm quiet for 2 people talking?
Yeah. Can I just blame Jake? He's the worst. All right. For me, first of all, you guys are both drunk because this is where you're wrong. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not in your top 5 picks, and you guys are out of your gourd. Like, just completely out of your gourd. Over the last 3 years, he's the second most productive fantasy wide receiver. He shows up every game. He balls out every game. He is the main cog. He is the PPR god. He is the sun god. He has touchdown equity. Jameson Williams is still a head case. He's still not somebody you can count on. Jahmyr Gibbs is still all world cool. He's still going to play in that general offense. There's going to be some changes, obviously, again, offensive coordinator wise. And even with a change this year, he was still awesome. We don't deserve Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay? We don't. Every single year we overlook him for the flashy new thing or the other guy, and typically he'll go somewhere between picks 5 and 10, somewhere someone just gets Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'll take him. And next year in the Black Book, I can assure you I'm going to be hyping him up because I think the slander has gone too far, that there's not enough respect on his name. Again, the base that he gives you every week as a floor of points is terrific. The upside he has for big splash games that win you a week is terrific. He's always taken good care of himself. He is always very reliable. The catch rate's off the charts for him. He's one of the hardest workers in the NFL, and he doesn't get enough credit. And the fact that neither of you yokels have him in the top 5 is very upsetting.
Yokels.
I just want to put that.
You don't have Gibbs in your top 5. That's why.
Well, Jahmyr Gibbs is next at number 6 for me.
Okay, so well, you're drunk. Well, apparently you're drunk too because you don't have Gibbs as a top 5 player fantasy.
Well, I can't have him and Amon-Ra. I want to give Amon-Ra some love here, but again, Jahmyr Gibbs thing to that point as well. I love Jahmyr, off the charts, terrific. There's a chance too if Matthew Stafford retires. What I would do is I would drop Puka down. I would have Amon-Ra go to 4 and Jahmyr Gibbs go to 5. So Puka's at 4, holding steady right now for me. But that's going to change dramatically without Stafford if that is the case, if we get to that point. CeeDee Lamb for me is still pick number 7 because I still do believe in CeeDee Lamb. We'll see what the Pickens situation is and how that works itself out. There's still time. Yes, do I need to adjust off that if it does happen, if he does return? Sure, I think Pickens will return, but we'll see what happens with that one thing at a time. Drake London is my pick number 8. Another one, too, where I want to see where the head coach is coming from, what that looks like, what that offense is going to run like. But we were really close to the big, the Drake London, here I am, I'm a fantasy superstar season, and injuries kind of derailed it. But we were right on the precipice of it, and let's see what happens. Is it Penix? Is it somebody else? Is it complete reworking? A lot of that, again, the fluctuation here of picks 7 and 8 for me are real, but as of right now, today, that's my confidence level. Lamb and London in that group, but Jahmyr Gibbs definitely over those other 2 wide receivers. That's my feeling. Erickson, why don't you pick apart what I've just done and laid out there too? Go ahead. I want you to have some more time.
I don't have Drake London in my round 1 because I am more bearish about who's the head coach, who's the quarterback going to be. if it is Michael Penix, when is he going to come back? How is he going to look like when he comes back? I mean, this is the 5th time this guy's torn his ACL, right? So how many times are we just going to go back to, okay, Michael Penix? Now, to your credit and to your point about Drake London, yeah, like he was the wide receiver 3 in points per game before Michael Penix went down. So those are the reasons why I just have a little bit of hesitance putting Drake London in round 1. Because, I mean, this is higher than he was going in drafts last year. And we knew Michael Penix was healthy entering the season. And again, it was a smaller sample size, but 3 games with Penix at the end of his rookie year, Drake London and him were vibing and clicking. I would say, too, I could move Drake London up as well if Kyle Pitts just leaves in free agency. And that cements Drake London as, like, there's really no target competition. I mean, like, Darnell Mooney, I feel like he's going to be someone that is going to just be buried in rankings, but I think we need to remember that I'm pretty sure he was injured the entire season. Like he was probably never healthy, and he's probably much better than what the tape was from this past season, which was absolutely atrocious. So that's something I kind of want to keep in mind. But yeah, definitely some movement for London. He's someone that I have high in round 2.
All right. So obviously this is where we really start kind of deviating from each other. Thank you very much for feeding me the word, Jake. But yeah, that's and this is good because I think again a lot of this is going to evolve over time, and I think it's a good discussion. I will stand fast though that Amon-Ra is a top 5 guy. I don't care what the combination is. Like
here's the big
I will
difference
stand by
that.
I want to lock that dude in. He is in his prime. He is good every week. He shows up every week. He's an Iron Man. He's a PPR monster. Go ahead, Ciely.
I mean, I was with you. Like I was one of the highest on Amon-Ra St. Brown last year. Like I said on the show yesterday with Erickson, a lot of people saying, thank you for this. Here's how my draft started. A lot of people were Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith, and Jigba Puka Nacua, double taps to start when we're talking about how we would do these type of things. So I was with you on that. The difference comes down to, and I don't know if anybody saw on the video, I was counting. You have him as wide receiver 4, Erickson, and I have him wide receiver 5. Like it comes down to your process in the first round. Like if we had our wide receivers higher, he would be pick 5 or 6 at worst for us. And I think that's just what it comes down to. So it's not that we're so much different than you on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it also comes down to me, and I'm not coming for anybody when I say this, it's just I have a very when you see my overall rankings, like I like drafting by positions. I always say if you look at my overall rankings, you see mine more in groups. Like mine don't often usually go RB, wide receiver, RB, like I'm like 4 or 5 guys, same position because they're tiered. They're in the same argument. They're same
tiers. Yeah.
So, like, if I really wanted to nitpick and split it up, I could argue a little bit higher, but that's why. So, James Cook is at number 9 for me. He's the 5th of those running backs. Gibbs, McCaffrey, Taylor, Achane, Cook. You can make an argument for any of those. I was going to give you your flowers to go back to that one. I was saving it for now. That I was one of the people that was arguing, like, even if you split Cook's touchdowns in half, he would still be top 10. And I still wasn't as high as you were on that. And that was still the wrong approach because he did have more than half.
Everybody just kept focusing on the same thing, which is a touchdown regression, which yes, of course.
But the yards went up. That was the big thing.
Right. But my whole point I kept making last August was, what did they do to give Josh Allen more help? And tell me how this offense is going to run through anybody else besides Allen and Cook. And nobody could give me an answer on that, but everybody just hated on James Cook. And
so you should have been in the discussion yesterday because a big theme, Erickson knows this, of those shows when we were recapping the NFC was there was 3 different teams. I'm like, pay attention to what the team was telling you. The Cowboys were telling us Javonte Williams was the guy. The Bears were telling us DeAndre Swift was the guy. The Bengals were telling us Chase Brown was the, like, pay attention to what the teams are telling. To your point here, they told us, hey, we're confident in James Cook. So anyway, that's why he's in the same group for me. And then I come back to wide receiver. Rashee Rice and Amon-Ra St. Brown is my double tap here. If you look at wide receiver, how flat it gets after those top 3 or 4, these two are right around that 15, 16 fantasy points per game. The only reason I don't have them a little bit higher and in that tier 1 is because the same argument that we're making for all these other teams is there's a big question mark. Like, does Dan Campbell bring somebody in like McDaniel? I will push Amon-Ra St. Brown up. Does he bring somebody in that's going to be a Johnny Morton type of lackey kind of situation where it's like, hey, I'm still kind of calling the play calls. Amon-Ra St. Brown's still going to be good. He's just not going to get to that upper crust of the tier.
How do you have Rice at 9, Jake? That's the thing that I don't understand. Between the Mahomes injury, the turnover in that organization, potentially, like of just, the cap problems they have. like all of it just seems like wretched, not to mention Rashee Rice's myriad of issues. Like, how can I can understand certain risks
because he's Drake London on the Chiefs.
Yeah, but
that's what I was going to say. I was like,
what good is Drake London on the Chiefs if Mahomes isn't throwing him the football? Like, I mean, Mahomes is not going to be back in September.
We don't know that.
Oh,
there's a chance he could play week 1. Okay.
There's a chance I can grow hair back on my head, but I didn't book that trip to Turkey.
I'm just telling you, Twitter doctors, and I put that in quotes because there's some good ones in the fantasy landscape, but like people we trust. But I'm just telling you, like the opinions out there range, and there's opinions out there where I've seen people talking about more positively Patrick Mahomes than more positively Malik Neighbors, which is crazy to me. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know Jack Diddley, but and that's why Malik Neighbors doesn't make my round 1, is because what's the question there? So your valid argument, but if Patrick Mahomes isn't, this is with Patrick Mahomes in play because, like I said, you're talking about 8 to 12 to 13 targets every single game, 20 fantasy points more often than not. That's really what it comes down to Rashee Rice. If it's not Patrick Mahomes week 1, even if you, Joe, to push back on this, if I'll push back on myself, if you said Patrick Mahomes week 5, Rashee Rice is out of the first round, done. I'm okay with that. And that's coming with the argument that Rashee Rice started with a suspension and still was super valuable. Well, that's a different ballgame because it also might not be Patrick Mahomes 100% until week 8. What if we go down the Chris Godwin situation with Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback? So all that being said, that's why he's right there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then I finish it out with Marion Hampton. I know everybody's just got that one touch in that game, but that was also missed practices. We should have kind of seen that coming. But Marion Hampton, when the lead, oh, by the way, guess who else is gone? Greg Roman. We might get bell cow Marion Hampton. And when we saw bell cow Marion Hampton, to the point that Andrew made way earlier in the show about the running backs and the drop off of these guys scoring 16, 17, 18 fantasy points at the running back position versus what's happening at wide receiver, Marion Hampton was in the 18 points per game range when he was the bell cow. And he'll have both his tackles hopefully back. And we potentially could just walk into a situation where we get the Marion Hampton we want as a rookie, which is better than Ashton Jeanty because of the teams that they play for. And Marion Hampton is why he closes out my round 1, because that potential to get 18 plus fantasy points per game. Honestly, Joe, I think there's a conversation to be had where if we knew that their offensive line was healthy and we knew that Hampton was going to get bell cow work, I put that in quotes, you could argue versus Christian McCaffrey for me, because now you're talking about youth and bell cow versus the upside and with the floor from before.
I as wrong as I think you are about Rice is as right as I think you are about Hampton. That's not, honestly, that's my take on it. And I'm not going to put a top 10 grade or even a top first round grade on Rashee Rice. I can't do it going into next year. Too many uncertainties for me. But with Hampton, I think you're spot on. Like I think Harbaugh is just itching to turn this team into a let's play the defense is good. Oh, we saw it on display in the playoffs again. Defense is there. It's good. The health of the offensive line was so bad last year. I felt bad because I felt like it was embarrassing on the pregame, when they show all the names of the players and they were showing the PFF grades, and all it was like this guard is 40 of 40. This guy is 37 of 38. And I was just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Poor guys. Don't put the grades if they're that bad. We don't want to do that to these poor guys. They're trying their best. But if you get Alt healthy, you get Slater healthy, and you have a little bit better luck, I do agree with you. Like, the best thing about Hampton is you don't have to draft him in the top 10, but I think he is going to finish. I think the 2027 first round is going to have him well in the top 10. So I am with you on that. Erickson, what do you think about Hampton and Rice too? Like, I think those are the controversial picks here, but I like one of them. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the way that you phrased that last section was who are going to be drafting at the top of 2027 fantasy drafts, I think is a really smart way to try to find the league winners, right? If we'd had that conversation last year at this time, Jake would have been like, we're going to be drafting JSN as a top 5 guy in 2026. And then obviously if that happens, well, they were going to end up being a good pick when they come in rounds 2 and 3. Because I really feel like, yes, the first round can be really chalky, but it's like these like early second round picks. Jonathan Taylor last year, he wasn't a consensus first round pick. Like, he was kind of hanging on that early second round, mid second round pick, and he ended up being like one of the best picks that you could make to start the year. So I think this is the area, again, outside the top 8, where it seems things like you got to pick your flavor. You kind of shoot your shot here. So I love the call on Marion Hampton. Again, Harbaugh compared this guy to Walter Payton. Okay, it's like really good that your head coach looks at you and says.
Also, is historically known for saying some stupid things.
Okay,
like, nobody's
but
Walter
trade your entire draft to take him.
He's not calling Kamani Vidal Walter Payton. So
no one should
agree.
be called Walter Payton. He's one of one.
Well, hey, just let Omarion Hampton.
He can get away with that because most people who are they're too young to know and have seen Walter Payton. I am not. I am an old fart, and I saw Walter Payton at the end. And Walter Payton at the end was still something to behold. That was a special talent. But anyway.
All I get to see is Omarion Hampton. That's my closest thing to seeing Walter Payton.
That's all you get. All right, Andrew, finally, you're showing some love to Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick number 9. Walk us through number 9 through 12 here for you.
Yeah, despite how the show has gone, I did actually have picks to talk about here. So pick 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pick 10, Devon Achane. Pick 11 is Saquon Barkley. So this is another lone wolf situation.
The first guy he started watching when he started watching football.
And then pick 12, Mr. Christian McCaffrey. So he did sneak into my round 1, but at 12, probably not going to get him. Again, don't need to divulge more into CMC. But the guy I want to talk about here, again, St. Brown, again, I could probably flip-flop him with CeeDee Lamb, so 8 and 9. He's still my wide receiver 5, like Jake talked about. Achane, I do want to see how this shakes out with who the quarterback is, who is the offensive play caller, but I can't discount Achane out of the round 1 because of how good he is. And he's got a 3-down skill set. And I wouldn't say Miami has been this culture for winning, and we love this so much, and he's been fantastic since his rookie season. Just been an absolute baller, and if he goes to an offense just that feeds him touches, especially in the passing game, I mean, his targets have been off the charts, especially when Tua's been the quarterback, so that's why he's my pick 10. And then Saquon, I'm the only one that has him here in my round 1, and Jake has talked about this in some of the takeaway shows where, I mean, the Eagles' offense entirely was bad this year. Mm-hmm. They had second halves where they didn't get first downs or do anything that looked like a functional offense. So if they can get back to 2024, not the fact that Barkley's going to get back to 2,000 rushing yards, but go back to Lane Johnson being healthy, the offensive line having cohesion, there's a chance that they have a lot of turnover at the skill positions. Dallas Goedert's a free agent. A.J. Brown is gone. Like, he's not coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles. So you have Devontae Smith stepping in as a wide receiver 1, Saquon Barkley. Does he see more of a evolved role in the pass catching game? Like, he still had 50 targets this past season. He actually had more receptions this year than he did during his 2024 season. And we know that it's in his repertoire where he has a diverse skill set of catching passes out of the backfield. So I think that Saquon Barkley, again, didn't draft him on any team last year. Was very strongly fading Saquon Barkley, but after being disappointment for a lot of fantasy managers, could he be 2025's Jonathan Taylor? Where Jonathan Taylor was kind of a disappointment. 2024 falls to the middle of the second round, but is Saquon Barkley so different? I'm not so convinced. So I like Barkley as a buy low option this year.
I like him as a buy low too. I like him in this early second round a lot next year, depending on, again, health of offensive line, what we're looking at, and what the reshape of the offense looks like and who the new play caller is. Because you're getting a new play caller.
I was just about to ask him, is this assuming that Kevin Patullo's gone?
I think we can all assume that's look, A.J. Brown's gone, Patullo's gone. Like, I think that's pretty easy. Before we get
my one concern, I was going to say, my one concern is that Lane Johnson isn't back. I mean, he's now going to be 35.
Well, and Saquon's going to be 29 in a couple weeks too. So just
and I was like, maybe we underrated the loss of Kelsey and how much of an anchor he was for that offensive line between him and Lane Johnson and just the impact. Like,
Kelsey wasn't there last year when Barkley almost went for 2,000 yards. So I don't think that is the issue. Fair. But maybe I meant like
the two of them together. Yeah.
Also, too, I'm pretty sure they're going to get rid of like the tush push. I think that they're going. I think the NFL is sick of it, and they don't like
you don't
how
like
it's
Josh
played.
Allen going 10 yards.
No.
I Josh Allen going 10 yards was fun.
I don't. I mean, the NFL tried to ban it last year. It didn't pass. I think if they ban it, then okay, now you have an opportunity where there are.
Yeah, but that was one of the teams that was against it, and it just worked so well for them this year. So like, did the Bills?
It wasn't
change
actually
their
that great
course?
for the. It also wasn't that great for the Eagles compared to a lot of other teams.
Actually, it was. Well, it was the option play to Dallas Goedert that they kept running off of it.
The option, yeah, Dallas Goedert had 11 touchdowns this past year after he had like 10 for like combined like his entire NFL career, never gets red zone touches, immediately just has like 11 randomly. So
all right, I got 4 more players left for my first round, and remember everybody, BP Premium is here for you. So download the Betting Pros app today if you have not. Use the promo code FP1month and you'll get a month free of the premium tools. So make sure you do that right away here because this is that time with the NFL playoffs. You got NBA, you got everything going on, and we can help you get into those caching areas. So that's what you want to do. You want to make some bets. You want to win some money. Don't be a tool. Use the tools at Betting Pros. All right, here we go. Not on anyone's list here except mine, Justin Jefferson. Why? Because he's an extraordinary talent. And I have seen the DeAndre Hopkins of the world and some extraordinary talents make do with lesser quarterback play. I understand this year was a complete S show for the Minnesota Vikings. I get it. I understand J.J. McCarthy. It felt like at times just didn't even know that Justin Jefferson was alive. I get it. I understand all of that. That is not going to be what happens in 2026. I'm sorry. I just don't, whether it be somebody else at quarterback or whether it be J.J. McCarthy working his rear end off or Justin Jefferson asking to be somewhere else. One of these things are going to happen, and Justin Jefferson is still a first-round talent, still a first-round pick, and I think no matter what happens, that situation is only going to improve. And even last year, it was funny because I can't tell you how many questions we kept taking. Should I play Justin Jefferson this week in round 1 of the playoffs? Should I take Justin Jefferson in my lineup for week 2 of the playoffs? So clearly these Justin Jefferson rosters were still making playoffs. Okay, so I get it. It was brutal. It wasn't nearly a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick, a first round pick. Okay, but at the end of the day, Justin Jefferson is extraordinarily talented, and I don't want to throw him out of the first round quite yet. I want to see what they do at the quarterback position. I want to see what sort of concepts they have, or I want to see if Justin Jefferson makes some noise and be like, you know what, this was fun. I don't think it's going to be a good spot for me going forward. We'll see. Jonathan Taylor does sneak into my top 10 to the point the boys made earlier. Jonathan Taylor was running like crazy, man. He was MVP caliber before everything went down. Now, the problem is with Daniel Jones returning, what does that look like? Does he return? Do we get somebody else at quarterback? I don't know. So some question marks there. That's why he is at 10. James Cook at 11 for me because, again, I do just believe that Buffalo can't do this again. They cannot go into 2026 without some sort of wide receiver one that you can count on. Who that is, I don't know, but it's going to be somebody, and it's not somebody on the roster currently, and that is going to have some sort of impact, I do believe, on James Cook, but still very close to a first-round pick. And then at 12 for me, I've been going back and forth. I had him at 10, I had him at 11. CMC, I'm just listening to my heart here, and I'm listening to the data of the last 25 years. He's a 30-year-old running back coming off, and he's advancing another round in the playoffs, okay? He wasn't one and done in the playoffs. He's going to play again against Seattle this coming week here. I can't get there. I can't do it. At the turn, okay, you're forcing my hand. I'm going to roll the dice, which means I'm probably not going to have a lot of CMC next year, which brings us to the guys that missed our first round. So no Trey McBride for any of us, and I think that goes to the conversation we had yesterday, which was there's so much good young talent besides McBride, where you have Warren, you have Bowers, you have Pitts who looked good last year, but you also have guys like Harold Fannin Jr., you have Tucker Kraft returning from injury, you have Colston Loveland. There's a lot of talent at tight end where you just don't have to do it, therefore I'm not. So he didn't make my top first round. Nico Collins, again, situational. We'll see what happens with him this offseason. Chris Olave was terrific this year. Just missed it. Devon Achane for me, missed it. But again, I could see myself taking Achane over CMC potentially, just depending on what's going on with the head coach. I want to see what coach and what system comes in there before I put Achane in the first round. Ashton Jeanty, I think, is another guy in that conversation for me. And Malik Neighbors with a good August. If he looks good and he says, I'm feeling good, I'm ready to go, the way Stephon Diggs looked to me going into the season, and I was like, this guy looks terrific. Look at how he's cutting. Malik Neighbors is a guy that I would definitely take in the top 10 for me personally if he looks good in August and he gives you the big thumbs up and he looks as sharp as Diggs did going into this past season. Jake, who are the guys that just missed for you that you want to bring up?
Well, I'll throw Justin Jefferson into the list, but I considered it just missed, and for me, he didn't just miss. That's me, fine. We'll talk about
only the most extraordinary wide receiver talent in the league, and you just go away, JJ. Yes, nobody cares about you anymore.
Because wide receiver 35 and fantasy points per game, that matters a lot. So again, your argument is valid. But your arguments also, like, we're kind of like, we're making our arguments, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Let's see who the OC is. Let's see what this is. What if the Vikings run things back to see if they have anything in J.J. McCarthy? So, like, yeah, you're shaking your head no, because we're all I think
they're
smarter than...
Even if they do, I don't think it can be as bad. I think this is the anomaly. I think
really?
when he set up, absolutely. What in Justin Jefferson the last couple of years playing with Sam Darnold and Josh Johnson and then Kirk Cousins and all these other guys? Like, we'll be fine.
And he
we'll
didn't
figure
play
it out.
with J.J. McCarthy. He didn't play with J.J. McCarthy, and that's a big factor. J.J. McCarthy, the only reason he actually even was wide receiver 35 in fantasy points per game is because of one-arm Wentz. If it wasn't for one-arm Wentz, he'd be outside the top 45. That's how bad it was. So I understand your argument. I'm just saying I'll talk about him. I'm not gonna have any Justin Jefferson until that situation changes, and by that point it might be too late because I'm not even considering him round 2. The people who just missed Drake London, which is again, this is what we're doing. Like, you want to make your arguments. Who's the quarterback? Who's the OC? There's just a lot of questions with the Falcons where, again, this is the reason why I go back to Bijan Robinson is because no matter what happens at quarterback, no matter what happens with OC, Bijan's going to be Bijan. It comes down to what do those pieces look like. So Drake London could get his way back into the first round. Both Cowboys, just because I actually think that Pickens gets franchised. And if anything, he's back, and then Pickens and Lamb are both just outside the first round, early second round for me. You want to make an argument for him in the first round? I have no problem with it, but I actually think there's an argument that you can make for Pickens over Lamb if he's back, just because of the touchdown equities point that Erickson made earlier. So anyway, those are why those are both there. At running back, it really just comes down to, I guess the biggest name missing is going to be the one that Erickson brings up. I don't see, speaking of another situation that it should be better, ? I don't know how much better it can get to get Ashton Jeanty into the first round. Like, we already had him at the end of the first round this year. Like, I don't know how you can get him back into the first, but I'll let Erickson, because we cut him off so many times, talk more about why no Ashton Jeanty into the first round.
Yeah, so Jeanty, to me, look, if the situation can just get better, right? That's the only thing, because he did everything else that we wanted to do. He caught passes. He played on all 3 downs. He basically was seeing 90% snap share. Raheem Mostert's a free agent. And he looked explosive and he was breaking tackles. So really it was all about just the Raiders in 2025 being so terrible that really held Ashton Jeanty back and still put over 1,300 yards from scrimmage. Like, objectively a really good rookie season, but the fact that he was drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts made him kind of like a bust, which was just unfortunate. So we'll see what the Raiders can do. I could see a scenario where, however they address the quarterback position, if they can just get the offensive line figured out a little bit here, get Colton Miller back and healthy, if they can do those types of things, you could see this go from a weakness to a strength, their interior offensive line, because we know that Ashton Jeanty is going to get touches. He was 6 in touches this past season as a rookie. Like, he can handle a full workload, and he's really explosive. So I could see him moving up, but obviously that depends on what the Raiders do on their offseason. Again, I agree with Jake where right now you got to take Hampton over Jeanty. Again, it's just a similar type of bet, except we're way more confident that the Chargers already have the guys that are good on the offensive line. They just have to come back and get healthy, where the Raiders theoretically need to get these players somehow, some way, whether through the draft or, free agency making trades. So Hampton, to me, I think definitely is the guy that I want to move up the most after we've kind of talked about the first round, which is good. Another great exercise, picking your guys' brains and figuring out, well, maybe I'm a little bit too low on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I guess I could push him ahead of CD Lamb. So I'm already kind of making some updates here because now my rankings are already coming into form here on January 13th. That will definitely never change at any point.
I want to, one thing that I've learned though from this process, I want to pick at the turn in every draft. I want to start Ashton Jeanty, Malik Neighbors. I want to start James Cook and Jonathan Taylor if I can, or whatever ends up getting out like that. I think the turn is where the massive value is going into 2026 because this is a very deep group, and or Justin Jefferson, who wasn't even these guys' right hearts at all. You're gonna give him to me in the second round, the beginning of the second round. Okay, cool. Like, and there's a lot of people that will take Trey McBride first round or late first round, early second round, and guess what? That's another guy that will bump some other talent into that back the front end of the second round too. There will be huge values potentially. Omari and Hampton being one of those guys too. Like that sweet spot, 10, 11, 12, I think in 2026. Last question, then we get out of here because we went long today because we're having a good conversation. Will any rookies crack the first round in 2026 in our fantasy drafts? I say hard no, not with this class. Andrew, what do you say?
I don't think after what Ashton Jeanty did last year that people are going to be like, all right, let's put this other rookie running back here in the first round. I think that, and I don't think that that's like the right reason to do it. To the point about Jeanty, it was about him just being on the Raiders. That was the reason he was a bust, not because he was a rookie per se. So, but I would also agree with you that it's a no for me.
Jake?
Yeah, and that's where I say that it could possibly be a yes, because we have another Jeanty talent level in Jeremiah Love. So if Jeremiah Love ends up on the Chiefs, the Cowboys, as they go away from Javonte Williams again, like, again, we're talking about landing spots. But, you know, if Love goes to the Saints in the first round, then no. Like, it really just comes down to it. So that's where I'm not going to I'm definitely not definitively saying no. I'm also not definitively saying yes, because it's going to depend on where Love goes. But Love would be the only name I think can enter this conversation, because he is of the ilk of an Ashton, Jeanty, a Saquon Barkley, and down the list of all these names, talent-wise, if he hits in the right spot.
I don't know. I feel like New Orleans isn't a bad spot, to be honest with you.
Rico Dowdle's going there. Saddle up, baby.
Right. All right, yeah. So I'm sure nothing will change with this show from now until September 1st.
Lock him in.
But
just gonna repost it August.
Where would you take CMC? Where would you take all of the above players here? What's your first round? Drop your first round, your 1 through 12, in the YouTube comments. I want to see them there, because I think this is a fun conversation, and hopefully we all had some food for thought here. Some of the players were too high on, too low on, so let us know. Subscribe to the channel, and of course wherever you get your podcasts as well. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Jake Ciely from The Athletic, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.